Wheatley, and welcome to episode 85 of the Weekly podcast. Nice and slow down there. This is a solo episode today. I've titled it Promotions and Bugbears, and you will see why very shortly. Thank you very much for joining in, always, for your support, always. Goes without saying. When I was putting these headphones on, I was wondering, why am I putting these headphones on when there's not a guest or whatever? But I don't know, they're kind of like a safety comfort blanket, I suppose. But in the setup that we have here in the corner, there's not really much chance of me being able to relax and move away from the mic anyway. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those, I don't know, it's just kind of what I have, even though there's a couple of episodes where I just had the earphones in, and that's been due to a very warm room and not being able to wear these on. It would be horrible underneath these if it gets too warm. Obviously, I want to thank Jaron Thomas from Awfully Irish for joining us last week. I had a good chat about podcasting in general, about getting guests on and interview techniques and stuff like that. It's slightly interesting for me to bring on podcasters at times, just to kind of hear their side of things, why they set it up and how they're getting on and stuff. And it's not something I'm going to make a big habit of, because obviously, a podcaster talking to podcaster it becomes kind of niche then, the subject matter. And I don't want it to turn into something like that. I think obviously it's important, if I get someone to talk about mental health podcast wise, it'd be great. I've kind of decided not to go on other people's podcasts. I was on 2 or 3, I think, and I've kind of had my say now, I suppose, when it comes to, because I'll be asked about mental health and I've had my say in that regard, and I don't want to just repeat myself, even though there will be new listeners. But yeah, it's just a case of not wanting to repeat myself in other people's podcasts. So for a while now, for the next while, we won't be having any podcasters on, but they were great to come on and chat, and they're growing very quickly. So fair play to them for putting the work in, because I know actually how hard it is to put the work in. And they're putting out 2 episodes a week. Right? Oh, wow, I just knocked my camera. I'm putting out 1 a week, and that's enough work for myself and John to be getting on with. So, yeah, thanks for the continued support and interaction, like I said. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, I always have to add that in at the start. If you're a new listener, or you're a listener who hasn't yet gone into YouTube and, gone on one of our videos and hit the little subscribe underneath that, it's always very helpful to us. Congratulations are in order to Niall Morgan, our former guest, and now for the first time he can call himself an All-Ireland champion. I'm recording this on a Sunday. Yesterday was the All-Ireland final. Tyrone, in the end, kind of ran out comfortable winners against Mayo. I wanted Tyrone to win. I've nothing against Mayo or its people. It's just the team annoy me a little bit. I don't know why. Well, I do kind of know why, but I won't go into it. It's not the right platform for it. But yeah, like I wanted Tyrone to win, and more so because I suppose I got to chat to Niall, and he was such a sound fella, and he was really. I'm always very grateful for people to give up their time, an hour and a half to record an episode with us, and he was very forthcoming in our episode, and no airs and graces about him. He talked about Tyrone's. Excuse the word shithousery, but they are connected with that. Although it's a very clean game yesterday, it wasn't a dirty game in any way. But Niall stepped up, got 3 points, 2 frees and 145, and I thought he's a very, even when the penalty, I know the penalty was missed to hit the post and went wide, but he's one of those keepers that he doesn't like to come out before the penalty's taken and have a little talk to the guy taking it, and it worked for him. But it was really, I wouldn't have been in this position, obviously without a podcast, but to be able to kind of see someone you've spoken to. We talked at the very start of the season, and the conversation never drifted towards, oh, do you think you can win the All-Ireland? Because nobody thought Tyrone could win the All-Ireland. Maybe the players did. Niall talked about it in his interview after the game yesterday, about the players felt that they could go that far, but nobody else really gave them a shot at the start of the season. And they beat the hardest teams going through. They beat really, really difficult teams, and possibly underdogs going right the way through against those bigger teams. So even right up to yesterday's game against Mayo, they were underdogs. So I thought they were brilliant. I thought they're a really good team. They'll be around now, considering they're after winning one. That's the hardest one to win. They're going to be knocking around. So really grateful, obviously, that Niall came on, but it was really nice to see how emotional he was after the game and riling up, getting the crowd going. And fair play to them, and congratulations to the whole team, obviously. But it was a good final to watch too, which is even more important. Look, that may have been Mayo's chance. In the grand scheme of things, when you look at it, you always kind of think, well, Dublin and Kerry are there, and they'll be back next year. And we've seen how Mayo has struggled against Dublin recently, and that may have been seen as their chance as favourites in a final against, like I said, Tyrone, a team that wasn't fancied right the way through. So they may not get another chance as good as that, but that's sport. It's always that whole thing about, they talk about the curse, the Mayo curse and all that. It's not a curse. You just haven't been good enough. You haven't. The best. It's how often can you say that the worst team in the final won it? It doesn't happen that often. It's about having the bottle and getting over the line, and they just haven't been able to do it. They've come up against a really good Dublin team in the past few years. Like, I understand that, but they're a good team in their own right. But wasn't their day yesterday? So, but a good final for us all to watch. And I know most of the country were behind Mayo, but I was behind Tyrone. So there you go. Yeah, the reason I'm on my own really today is we have about 6 people lined up. Okay, so. Me sending out, I hate this part of it, sending out emails, sending out messages, just random, because some people probably see it as spam. If they don't go into it, they just see it as spam and don't even look at it. But I send out emails, send out messages and all this kind of stuff. We ended up with about 5 or 6 people, but one was saying, is it okay to leave till the end of September, start of October? And of course it is, it goes without saying. But we got to the point where I was like, oh, we don't have anyone for this week. We could get someone to jump in, excuse me. But at the same time, like I said to John, like maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to do a solo one every 9 or 10 weeks, just to talk about what the story is with me, and if my mental health has gotten worse, gotten better, what I've been doing, have I been following up on any of the guests when they talk about whether it's like meditation, all the stuff we've been talking about before, meditation, cold water swimming, and have I been keeping those things up, and have they been helping? So I don't, maybe it's a thing going forward that we will try and every maybe 10 episodes put in a solo episode, and it's really so much less pressure in some ways of not having to write, an episode and try and make it work and try and line up the right time that me and the guest can do it. It just leaves me being able to do whenever I want. I can write whatever I want. I wanted this episode's going to be a fine balance of positive and not so much negative, because it's a comedic kind of negative, but a negative nonetheless that I'm going to talk a bit about. So yeah, I don't mind them. There is a bit more pressure because I'm the one doing all the talking, but at the same time, I got used to it. It's 80. It is 8. We're talking 85 episodes now. I should be getting all right at it. I should be getting as good as expected of my my intelligence and the way I think out things. My speech patterns have not gotten any better. But the first thing I suppose I want to chat about, yesterday was my sorry, it wasn't yesterday, it was Friday. Sorry. Was my 4th year in Fusion Training Center, which is like, I can't believe it's been 4 years. It's very odd to me to think, I don't think very well in terms of time scales. So I was trying to think the other day when I started running, and I thought, I think it was 30 or 31. We'll say 30 or 31. Okay. So it's either 8 or 9 years. And I was just thinking, no, it couldn't possibly be that, because I can't think in terms of it being, it's impossible for it to have been 8 or 9 years. It just couldn't have been that long. And that goes the same when it comes to Fusion. Like, it can't have been 4 years when I first went in there on one evening and just being terrified of everything and sitting on the mats watching people do weird rolling around the mats, trying to do hug each other. You know, I didn't. I can't compute that into those 4 years. It doesn't fit somehow. But I put up on if you do follow us on Instagram or Facebook, and you should. I did put up about thanking everybody, CrossFit coaches, jiu-jitsu coaches, Martin and Katrina and James, John, obviously, Sensei John, but it's so much more than just those. Obviously, they're the ones that help you through difficulties, and they're the ones you tend to go to when you are having technical troubles when it comes to whether it's jiu-jitsu or CrossFit. But it's the whole atmosphere in there. It's the whole team and everybody in there. It's such a inviting environment, and it was for me. And I like to think that I add to that now because of what I've seen before, and that I invite people in the way they invited me in, and that that rubs off on everyone, that kind of shared experience in there, and how everybody's trying to help each other get better. And that has been a very, very big part of my life for the last 4 years, because I was getting better mental health wise. I was getting better, it was a slow process when I didn't have a kind of a group setting that I could go into. I had certain people I could chat to, whenever I needed to, and they were always there. But I had nowhere to go, in nowhere to put my energy into. I could go for a run or whatever, but it's not the same, that kind of solo run, compared to jiu-jitsu or CrossFit, where there is people around you and there's people to help and you can help people. So I had nowhere to put that kind of energy in either. So when I signed up there, it was thanks to Shane Rafferty again, that I did take that step in and kind of go, right, I need to do this for myself and for my development, and hopefully, for the positives of my, mental health. And it has been a great 4 years, and it has been very, very positive, which kind of leads me into the first part that I want to talk about, the promotions part of the title. So if people haven't been following me on social media, there's a kind of, I put up a post, I think it was the 21st of August. I might be a day out either way, but it was around the 21st of August. And Martin somehow managed to put together an opportunity for some of us who may have been due a blue belt 2 years ago, maybe not 2 years ago, but a year and a half, we'll say, but pre-pandemic. He put together a little kind of a shindig that we could get together safely and give us a chance to get our blue belts. And there was a good group of us. There was a good group of us able to, say that we even, and I'm still saying it now, I'm not a blue belt, and on the evening or even beforehand when Martin brought it up to me, I was still saying I'm not a blue belt, but you are if your coach is, yeah. Like, he's not going to just give them out. Martin's certainly not one that's going to do that whole favoritism thing. He actually speaks, talks about it very honestly when he talks about it, that's not the way a gym should do it. You shouldn't be a favoritism thing. So Martin calls on his coach, Kieran Davern, who's been on our podcast. He's a black Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He competes for Ireland. He competed for Ireland and the UK versus America recently. Against a world champ, the American lads, world champions. Obviously the Americans are a little bit ahead of Ireland and the UK in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as it arrived there earlier. But we're really starting to kind of, try and get towards that weight and punch at it or even above it. And Kieran is like considered so highly that he was in the Polaris team going and get up against the US. So, and obviously Martin talks about Kieran so highly because of his skill set, but also the person he is. And if you want to go back and listen to the episode I had with him, you can tell that he's just a very knowledgeable person on the subject, and a great leader in those terms. And his place is over in SPG in Tullamore, and he's someone that people would definitely look up to. And so we were able to get him over, and Martin says this is the people ready for blue belt, and Kieran is kind of there to give the belt, but more than that, to kind of oversee it and suggest maybe if he was to say, look, I'm not sure if this person is ready for it, or to confirm, maybe if Martin has doubts, to confirm and say, oh, this person, yeah, he or she is ready to go for the blue belt. So when I approach, there's many reasons people go in there, to do jiu-jitsu. And some people want to go in there and compete. That's their goal, to go in, learn, go compete in as many tournaments as they can and win medals and, grow in that way. There's people who think in terms of, John Nash, A Beautiful Mind character, where they can see things that I can never see, but they see the jigsaw completed before they've actually done it, and be able to kind of bring that forward. And they'll go home and they'll look at jiu-jitsu videos online and they'll take all that in, And when Kieran was on, I asked him, was that necessary? Hoping he would say, no, you don't have to look at videos online. But he said, yeah, you should really. And I was disappointed. But the people will take great, they will go home and watch videos and take a great interest in it. Some people are there to get their belts. Some people want to get to the blue belts as fast as they can and purple belts and go through all the belts as quickly as they can. These are all legitimate reasons for going, by the way. None of them's the wrong, way of going about it. For me, it didn't really matter in terms of belts, because I think I quickly realized, and I've spoken about this, but I quickly realized that when I was in there, the anxiety went, because the anxiety was there when I was going in, and still is some days when I'm going in. The anxiety is there all the time, and it may never leave me. But when I'm in the middle of a roll with somebody, 5 minutes of trying to choke them or, lock up their, arm or whatever it might be, and then vice versa, me trying to defend the fact that they're trying to choke me, there is a real sense of the anxiety going away, and that doesn't really come with anything else. Maybe running, actually, in a way, it can take it away. So the terms for me going in there was more about mental growth and keeping fit. That obviously, everybody's going to get that when it comes to something like jiu-jitsu. And people are crazy in there at how quickly they can pick things up, and I'm not one of those. And Martin in particular, because he's the head coach, and obviously John, who has been coaching the evenings before the pandemic when I was going in, they have to realize the speed that some people are going to get it and some people don't. And I'm one of those pessimists that if I see a move, if someone shows me we'll just say a choke, right? So it doesn't matter what choke, but just a choke, and I don't get it in the first 2 or 3 goes, I go, and I still do this, by the way, I go, right, I'm never going to go for that in a roll, so it doesn't matter. And I dismiss it. But other people go in there and they see it and they go, right, I didn't get it my first 2 or 3 times, but I'm just going to try it anyway in a roll. And for me, that's so almost impossible. If I'm on top of someone and they're really trying their best to get out from underneath me, or even trying to get some submission or sweep from the bottom, everything goes on my mind. And I'm just like, okay, right, I have to lie here for a minute now and really have a think about what this choke is. Other people can just apply it instantly. So it's just the way your mind works and the way your body works. And my very, 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 very good friend, Josh Channon, who has been mentioned in this podcast probably more than anyone else, he got his blue belt a couple of years ago, and he got to it quick. And Josh is one of those people who goes home, and if they get a chance, this was before the kids arrived for him, he would look up the stuff online and he would learn that stuff. And I don't think he's mad into looking it up. I think he was just wanting to. He's one of those people who wants to improve, obviously, but he wasn't purposely going in there going, I have to get this blue belt, I have to get this, whatever. He wasn't going to compete. That wasn't his thing. But I got to train with Josh an awful lot, because we got mats and we put them in his spare room in his house. So I was going down there and getting mauled by him, but I was learning stuff all along. And that's another thing that comes into it, is like, you learn stuff with it. If you have the same partner over and over again, you always think that you're getting into a role, but you already know everything that the other person's going to do, and you don't get anywhere. But it's not really true, because it means you have to think outside the box. And then when you go in against somebody different who doesn't know what you're going to do, you fly it. And that's another thing about jiu-jitsu as well. Like, talk about, it's not just about technique. When you go and compete, you go and compete against people your own weight. So weight is, if I'm going in there with, someone who's 65 kg, I'm 90 kg, obviously I have an advantage if I'm lying on top of them. Weight is an advantage. Um, Strength is an advantage. I'm not saying someone's going to try and just throw you around the place, but strength comes into it. If you're in the middle of a proper tussle, if someone's a bit stronger than you, they're probably going to win out that tussle, and then you have to go again. And physique, like physicality, flexibility, all come into it. So there's a huge, difference between us all in there, and that's the kind of joys of growing with people. And it's not just about, and Martin will agree with this. It's not just Martin or it's not just John. It's everybody in there gets you your belts, your promotions, the stripes on your belts. It's every single person helps you get there. You go in and as a white belt, and you're the one that's going to be, the nail, and you're the one that's going to be. You have to take all those hidings and all those you tap out so many times, because people are practicing on you. And Kieran, when he gave me the blue belt and wrapped it around my waist, he said, your targets now for white belts, that they'll want to tap you, because everybody remembers the first blue belt they tapped. I do. I'm not going to say it was, but I remember the first blue belt they tapped, and it's a great feeling. So now you have a target on your back, but at the same time, you're also now at the bottom again, because you're at the bottom of the blue belt. So I think a lot of people leave at this point. When you get your blue belt and you feel you're not going anywhere. It's going to be a long time until you get your purple belt. That's when they leave. I'm not going to leave, because again, it hasn't been my goal to get the belt. It hasn't been, I have to get the belt, It's not really my goal. My goal is to continue to grow and to continue to enjoy it, and make friends and that. So obviously I want to thank Kieran Davern for coming over and wrapping the blue belt around me. It was a thrilling evening for me to get it, and it does mean a lot to me to move on to another step. And it is my first sporting achievement, by the way, because I've never won a medal, like a gold, silver, or bronze medal. I probably got a participatory medal when I was a kid in school, where we all got them. I never won one, so this is my first sporting achievement. I'm not a athletic person. My arms and legs rarely work together when I ask them to. So I do think that it's been worth the wait. I do want to thank obviously Martin Hickey for being patient with me all this time, for being like a good friend as well. That's important too. But like a very good coach. And like I said in a message the other day, if Martin could get me to blue, and if someone's listening to this thinking I should try jiu-jitsu, if he can get me to blue, he can get you to blue. Trust me on that. Obviously want to thank Sensei John, as always, my evening coach pre-pandemic. He's a great coach as well. Actually, John is a very different styles. Every coach is a different style, obviously. John's very relaxed, but I've always loved rolling with John, and I haven't rolled with him in a long time now. So I really want to get back in there one of the evenings, and hopefully, as things are moving on, we'll be able to kind of get back into the swing of a roll at least once a week. And obviously, I want to thank Josh for his patience, in the gym, in his house, on the phone all the time. Anytime I need to have a chat with him, it's been great. I appreciate everybody on the mats for helping me get to the blue belt. It's important for me. And congratulations to every single one. I'm not going to name everyone, because I'll miss one. And I know I'll miss one. And I'll feel really bad for that. But some of you have been there as long as me, longer than me, shorter time than me, but all well deserved. So let me read out the advert, and then we'll get into the Bugbears. Okay, Fusion Training Centre, Monksland Athlone. A place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre, train like a warrior. Yeah, things are really flying along now, and hopefully, I don't know if I think it's tomorrow week, that the hope is that Jiu-Jitsu is all a go and everything can kind of kick back into what we were doing, and that'll be amazing for everyone. And for anybody who like I say wants to take up jiu-jitsu and wants to see why people love it so much, come on in and tap your first blue belt, i.e. me. So Bugbears, I have an awful lot. like I was like thinking about this the other day. It's like so many bugbears, and I wanted them to be a bit broader than just just smaller things like when people leave. When you've got a 2 liter of milk, not the cartons now, the big jug yolks or even the 3 liter yolks, and people who leave the ring on. You pull off the ring pull you pull off, and then they leave it on the bottle. So every time you have to open the bottle of milk, things there all the time. That annoys me. So there's just one example, but I didn't want to have them really small and like that. I wanted them to be slightly bigger. So annoyance is probably a better way of putting it, but bugbears is a great word. I was chatting. Someone online had put up, a friend of mine, Ailish, had put up that it was like Room 101 when they saw the title, but that's exactly the show I had in mind when I was writing it. Room 101, and what would I have in there? And if people haven't seen Room 101, it's going a long time. Frank Skinner does it now. It used to be Paul Merton. I think it was Paul Merton, and it's based on the old what is the dude's name? He wrote 1984. George Orwell. He wrote 1984, and Room 101, and that was like your greatest fear. But in this, it's obviously not it's a TV show, so it's your greatest dislikes. So this kind of fits it perfectly. So before I begin, let me just have a drink of this. I have my phone beside me as well because I need it for reference points. So my first bugbear, and this is and if anybody isn't using this as a bugbear or doesn't have this as a bugbear, they have very, very great patience. All right. My first bugbear is Karens. Okay. Now, I want to explain what a Karen is because, there's going to be people listening to this going, you don't like people with the name Karen. That's obviously not what the case is at all. So there's an article from the New York Post, and it talks about stereotypes, and the stereotype, I suppose, of the Karen is it's been co-opted to call out many, and this is inverted commas, white lady with a bone to pick socio-cultural faux pas online. Think calling the police to shut down a kid's lemonade stand because they don't have a permit, spurring slangy put-downs like "calm down, Karen." Okay. There was one recently. I say recently. It's probably not recently. I don't know how old this article is. There's an infamous Karen of late called Amy Cooper, a white woman who called the police on Blackbird or Christian Cooper when the two ended up at odds in the ramble at Central Park while she was walking her dog. She pulled the pin on the race grenade. She told the authorities that the African-American man is threatening my life. That didn't happen. But of course, the fact that if you were to use that whilst calling the police, the idea is, as the things go around in news cycles, that the police have been or shooting black people or killing black people. This was around the time of George Floyd. Sorry. So that's the kind of, if you call the police and tell them that, imagine what could happen to that person. That if the police pull up and think that he's doing something now. There's a certain look that a Karen is said to have. Now, I can only show this obviously to the people watching, but I've got a picture on my phone, and this was a Halloween costume from 2019 that someone used as an example of a Karen. So you can see there she has got coffee cup in hand, big sunglasses. Her hair is dark but has highlights in it. She's wearing a chain, like those key chains to get you into an office or a factory building, and a mobile phone in the hand. The mobile phone is essential. So another person I heard describe them as some people who complain about everything for nothing. So there's like you will, if you go online, I don't know what, like I watch these as my bad habit. Like I bite my nails, that's my bad habit. Some people smoke cigarettes, and we all have bad habits. My bad habits is going onto YouTube and seeing these Karen videos and watching them and kind of going, oh, you earned it. There's so many I can give you. I won't be able to tell you them all, but these Karens in the Wild is one of the channels that I watch. There tend to be airports, drive-throughs, supermarkets are the main kind of places that Karens seem to hang out so they can give out. There's more than that, but they seem to be the main ones. I saw one recently where there was a woman, she got out of her car and she was at a drive-through, people get so angry at drive-thrus, and by the way, the male Karen is either called, they haven't seemed to kind of settle on her name yet. So some people call them Darren, some people call them Kevins. But there's this woman, she pulled up and she was hammering on the glass of a drive-through hatch, and roaring like, "Give me my drink, give me my drink." And she said at one point, "My child is choking, give me my drink." For the next minute and a half, she continued to hammer on the thing. If her child was choking, what was she doing? Why isn't she in helping the child in the car? Yeah. Anyway, that's just logic. Logic doesn't really exist in the Karen's orbit, though. And that's kind of part of the problem. I did see a Darren or a Kevin at the same thing, banging on a drive-through window, and he said that for the last 3 times I came here, my order was wrong. I'm sorry, but why are you still going back there if your order was wrong? There's no reason for you to be there. They always have their phones. It's really, there's no self-awareness. Sometimes they post the videos. Sometimes it's onlookers going, "Oh, look, here's a Karen." But the ones that post the video and put them online, there's no self-awareness to the fact that they were in the wrong. There was a woman who parked her car, got out of her car. There was a parking space next to her car and stood in the parking space and wouldn't let the other person get in because they were holding it for a friend. She put that online when the other person decided, "No, I'm not having that. I'm going into that parking space. You can't stand in the parking space and hold it for someone." She put a line and said, "I don't think I'm wrong. Does anybody think I'm wrong?" This kind of lack of self-awareness, such self-importance. The Karens, not all the Karens, obviously, but they tend to slip into racism. It's like if you're losing an argument or something, and you've played all your cards, and the person you're arguing with is just not biting, and they're nonplussed about the whole situation, and you then pull out the race card because it's the last thing you can do to really get a reaction from someone. And it's getting worse. The Karen, there's been a pandemic worldwide, and not just like a COVID one. It's certainly been a Karen pandemic. They are using this idea of masks now as the reason to complain. And if there's a policy in the store, they bitch and moan about the fact that I've a medical exemption, but they don't have anything to show that they have a medical exemption, because they could possibly have one. That's not my problem. They could have medical exemption. The problem is you have to show you have a medical exemption. And it's amazing that all the Karens seem to have some sort of a medical problem. They can't wear masks because of it, but yet they're, asthmatic or something, and they're going crazy and getting really heated up and arguing with. And I feel so bad because it's always like the jobs that people are probably having to scrimp and save to get their rent sorted and get their electricity paid and all, and then they have to go into these jobs like a drive-through in somewhere in the States, and they have to put up with all that nonsense. It's not, by the way, it's not just an American problem, it's a problem worldwide. I've seen some Irish Karens online. They're interesting, but yeah, Karens in general are just, and I feel bad. And I text someone I know called Karen the other day to say, "Listen, I'm not including you in this," but they understood. They just, as they said, it's been a hard few years for the name. And I don't know why the Karen, like it. I did try to see where the initial, why they picked Karen as the name for this type of person, and I couldn't. I've yet to have an actual interaction with a Karen, and thankfully, and I hope I never do. And we never know how any of us will react, but it's growing all the time, and they'll always find something to complain about. But yeah, keep an eye out for Karens. If you don't know what a Karen is, have a look up, go online, have a look at a few Karens, and realize that there is a lot of stupidity and lack of awareness, self-awareness involved. Two, now everybody will be able to relate to this. Okay, right. So people who seem surprised that they have to pay whenever they get to the counter. And what I mean by that is, when I'm going in to get my weekly shop, And I go up to up to the conveyor belt, pull all my groceries on, and that gets to the end of the line. Sorry, my phone is lighting up. I'll move it away. I get to the bagging area. I'm bagging all that. I've got my wallet out. It's there. It's out already. So as soon as the person says to me, 40 quid, I go, right, bang, there's the card, beep it, and I'm gone. Why are people digging around in whether it's their bags or their pockets? Get a move on. Like, it really annoys me. It's there. And every time I come out there and Anne's waiting in the car, because she's so good to me for bringing me over to my shopping and stuff. I'm always giving out when I come out. It irritates me so much that people are not ready to pay for their shopping when they get to the checkouts. Why is it a surprise to you that it's time to pay? Why I would never, right? This is another thing that's really weird, right? I'd never leave my stuff on the checkout, right? Not put it on the conveyor belt, but someone's still at the end paying, probably looking for the bloody purse, but someone's still paying. I would never then decide, oh, I forgot to get like a pizza, and go off and get it. There's no way, because I'm holding everything up then, because if it is paid for, the person starts putting it through. This other person's off looking for their favorite pizza. And then we're all just looking at each other, and everything's really awkward. And my anxiety's gone through the roof at this point. And the cashier's looking at me. I'm looking at the cashier, and we're just standing there. And this person still hasn't come back, and all their messages have gone through. That kind of stuff. Stop messing around the checkout. Just get the stuff in and out. We're not there for a good time. It's there to be. I just want it to be a certain uniformity to it. That's not too much to ask. So to always be ready to pay, because you have to pay. Like, the cashier's not going to turn around and say, do you know what, this week I'm going to let you away with it. Just please be ready with your money. And I'm not talking, listen, people are probably thinking, I'm not talking about elderly ladies getting the change out, whatever. That's not my problem. My problem is people who are surprised that they have to pay. They seem taken aback by, oh yeah, I forgot I was going to have to pay for this. Get the bloody wallet out. I was getting a bit heated there. I was just going to take a drink of water to calm down. There's another thing. Again, this goes back to no, actually, it doesn't always go back to the internet with this one, but I think it's a certain thing on Twitter. But it hasn't always been. I don't think it's always been the case that this has happened. But look, we all want to think we're cool. There's an idea in our heads that we want to be cool. I've never been cool. I never will be cool. That's great. At this point, I don't mind. I used to care when I was younger. At this point, I don't mind. But there's this, when someone says to you, and I was trying to think of a good example to use, really. So I'm probably not going to pick a good example, but I'll pick an example nonetheless. Excuse me. So if someone says, oh, did you see Niall Horan? That's a bad example because he's Irish and we all know who he is. But just say you don't, right? Someone says, did you see Harry Styles on the Late Late Show last night, for example? I don't know. So, and the reply is like, oh, I don't even know who he is. That's the real life situation. But on Twitter, it's easier to do. So if someone puts up something like, oh, Girls Aloud split up, and you'll see the replies underneath, you just count the amount of times someone will say, never even knew they were together. This kind of, this idea that we're trying to be cool by a certain amount of ignorance to the popular culture or the fads that are going around. And like, I used to do it a little bit, I think. And I used to do it with certain films and film franchises and stuff, because that's obviously the thing that I'm into. I just, honestly, when it comes to music now, I have no, concept of who's out there or not. I just don't, because I don't pay much attention to the modern day charts. But I'm always paying attention to film, and I used to do it so much with like Marvel and these kind of the bigger franchises that always had stuff coming out, and it is hard to keep up with that, that kind of thing when you aren't in on a particular franchise, particular characters. So sometimes I actually don't know, but other times I used to say, "Oh, I didn't even know that was out," even though I did know it was out. Like I always know a film is out because I keep an eye on film Twitter. I keep an eye on certain, with certain websites. I keep an eye on, or I listen to podcasts to do with film a lot, and they talk about the box office, the scores and stuff. And if you talk about box office scores, you've heard of all Marvel films and all DC properties and things like that. So I do it. I used to do it a lot with that, and I used to say, I didn't even know that was out. That someone would say, "Oh, Falcon and the Soldier," and I'd be like, "What? Or who?" Or I'm using an example. So there's this real kind of snobbery I think we're trying to do now, where we get to a point where we're like, if it's something that I don't like, I'm going to pretend I've never heard of it because I don't want to be part of this conversation or this fad or this idea that there's a new artist out there that people have compared with, I don't know, the Beatles or something. And you're like, well, I never even heard of them, so they couldn't possibly be as good as my favorite group. It's a very strange thing. And I hope I'm getting my point across. Maybe not. And I hope I'm getting across well enough that people would be able to kind of go, "Oh, I understand what you're saying, but you're not saying it very well." But it's a huge thing on Twitter in particular, which is a site that's sometimes it's great for information, but other times it's just a cesspit. And I might get back to that in a little bit. But it's like nobody cares if you don't know who that is. Like of course it's the way you say it as well, because I think if you want to be educated and you want to know about this stuff, you will say, "Oh, I haven't heard of that. Was he in such and such?" Or, you try and learn from the little gap in knowledge that you have. You try to bridge it with something else so you can kind of relate to it. But we all just kind of go, "I never heard of that because I'm too cool to have known who BTS is," And when John and Josh and Calvin and Martin were on when we were doing the quiz, John mentioned one of their songs on as one of his guilty pleasures, and I'd say a few years ago I would have went, "No, I never heard of them because I'm too cool." Like, no, you're not. It's like it doesn't matter if you haven't heard of them, but like, don't say it in a certain way as if they're too good for you or you're dismissive. That's kind of a bugbear of mine that I used to do myself, and I've tried to reform that part of me. But hopefully you can relate to it. Well, maybe that's not a good thing to wish on anyone. Another thing that's really strange to me, I can understand partly why people do it, I suppose, but it's strange. I can't get my head around why someone would do it, like in certain positions, right? And that's buying social media followers. I've used to follow people on social media, and I'd known that there were. Look, it doesn't really matter how many followers they have, but you have to use examples to get the point across. That if you have 400 followers and then the next day you have 6,000, something's going on there. Like, it's not overnight 5,600 people heard of you and now they're all following you. And when I say I can understand why people do it if they're trying to get a business going, and it does attract people to the business if you've got more followers. It's fair enough. I can see why you do it. I disagree with it. I think it's a little bit, it is underhanded. Like, and it's morally a bit ambiguous, at least, if not morally bad. I never thought of doing it for the podcast. I can see even why a podcaster would do it, actually. If you have, 600 followers compared to having 6,000, and you ask someone onto the podcast that might have, a bit of clout and a bit of a back in themselves, and they see that you have 6,000, they're more likely to say yes to coming on the episode, the show. But you're lying to them in the first place, but also, like, you're lying to yourself. They're coming on. They're not coming on for you. They're not coming on because they think they didn't listen to your big podcast. They're coming on because they think 6,000. Well, maybe I can get like 500, 600 of those people to like my page, and then that'll bump me up a little bit as well. It is very. That's when I talk about it being very morally ambiguous, because you're lying to your potential guests about your popularity in order to kind of convince them uh, to get them on the show. And the business goes the same way. Um, Businesses are different to podcasts, of course. Well, some podcasts are businesses to the host, but when it comes to business, people are putting up, buying followers. You can buy them. I've been sent spam on Instagram about buying a certain amount of followers for a certain amount of money. It's very easy to find out if people have the actual number of followers. You just click into their followers and you'll see that they're all bots, and you click it to one person they tend to have quite a lot of numbers in their name, and you click into that, and uh, they've got they follow one person and they've got 2 followers. It's not easy to do, and trust me, I am. Look, everybody knows this by now. I am not technically minded. Yeah, when it comes to that kind of stuff. So if I can find that out, anybody can. So I think that is a bugbear of mine, because it's go out there and get the followers. Go out there and work for them. Do your promotion, or push your product out there. And if you can't get it one way, if it's not working on Instagram, go over to Facebook or go to Twitter, whatever way you want to go about it. But don't buy followers. It's kind of a bit kind of cheap, and well, it's not that. It's probably not that cheap. Probably cost you a bit, but it's kind of tacky in that way, and a bit dodgy. And that's a bugbear of mine. And I look, we've covered it a bit already, but the faceless side of the internet is another bugbear of mine, and it's to do with comment sections, and how I can, if I wanted to, create an avatar on my page of just it doesn't have to be anything. It could just be the Twitter egg, because if people don't know the profile picture, if you don't put up your profile, it's like there's an egg there. And then you could just hate people, just hate on people, whatever they put up, just constantly like putting up underneath someone's, I never heard of them, that kind of stuff, just constantly being a troll for no reason. And I know trolls, and I know a couple, but one in particular, that's what they do with all their time, is just spend their day trolling with people. And it's just, I don't get the troll thing. I don't get because my mindset isn't that way, I wouldn't expect to get it. I don't know what they get out of it. I don't know what's happened to them beforehand to turn them into that way. And when they want to go around and spreading hate, and and this goes into racism, this goes into every little aspect, but also in it to little things that are just trying to make people feel bad about themselves for no particular reason. I guess none of these are bugbears, really. They're kind of just things that I really don't like about what's going on. But that's all right too. I mean, bugbears, whatever. It's a good word, like I said. But that kind of it really just leaves the person who would I like to consider the regular normal person on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, who just going on for content and trying to be whether it's inspired or be creative or just like stuff that they're into. It just leaves them kind of tired and frustrated. That's all that the internet seems to be about now. If someone puts out something, if a band puts out an album that wasn't as good as their last album, and it just gets hammered, and not by the music press, by people who are just have been waiting for that to happen. It's like say for instance, if that group BTS split up, there's a group of people out there waiting for that to happen, so they can really have a go at the fans of the people and say, ha ha ha, your precious band have broken up. It's a weird way of thinking. It's a weird route to go down in your life, to decide that what I'm going to do with my time is to really hate on people and really make people sad and make them angry. So I suppose it's about trolls, really, this part, rather than the side of the internet. But yeah, it all ties into one, I guess. And so yeah, and it all piles on top of the other. And it goes with news cycles, this kind of Ireland's news cycles. It's just, exhausting. And I don't even watch the news anymore. But you hear about like Leo Varadkar went to a festival, and whatever your opinions on him going to the festival, or whatever your political opinions are, or your political affiliations, or whatever they might be, do we still need to be talking about it like 2 weeks later? It's not that we're I know we're a small country, and we need to have news, and all of those stations and websites and newspapers need to sell. But God, there's people still writing into news channels about about that incident with the festival, and it's like, Jesus, get over it, right? It's done, right? It's bad. Should he have gone? Maybe not. Did he go? Yes. What are we going to get from constantly going on about it? And this goes back to this. There's been a few things recently that I'm just using that because I heard someone on the radio yesterday talking about it as I was in a car. I didn't put on the radio myself to listen. I was in my mom's car. But this goes back to, a number of things over the past few weeks. And you just notice how they go on and on and on. And they know that that's going to create obviously create headlines, but then create what comes after. And those comment sections, go into a comment section about any kind of scandal. I use it as a small scandal, but let's say it's a scandal. Go into comment section about that and just see how quickly it turns into something that is far nastier than it needs to be. It's not just about, oh, he shouldn't be over there, because he's entitled such and such, Then it becomes quite quickly, you'll see something come up about his race, his background, and then it just goes into chaos. And it's the same with, like, how many times if you go into comment sections, the Nazis get mentioned out of nowhere. If anybody does this whole thing about the internet, that if anybody, the first person who mentions Hitler has lost the argument, because it so constantly, even if it's nothing to do with Germany or Germany in the 40s and Nazism and all those things, if someone mentions Hitler, they've lost the argument, because it's like, that's the go-to, it's comparing stuff. We compare, oh, this is like, because Americans are great at the moment of talking about, oh, this is like Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany doesn't exist anymore. It's Germany. Nazi Germany is back in the 40s. It's nothing like it. America's nothing like it. Listen, I'm gone off topic here. I'll just have a quick drink and we'll relax. So yeah, the faceless side of the internet, the comment sections, they're really irritating. And I guess one of my last bugbears really would be me. I'm always, like, the anxiety causes this. I'm always ahead of myself, and I'm always forgetting. My memory is shot because of the fact that I'm never living in the present, and I'm always jumping into the future and what I need to do for the next hour, or what I need to do for tomorrow, instead of enjoying today. And that's a bugbear that I can probably try and do something about, and I hope to. But that's it for the bugbears. Oh no, sorry, I did have one more. Sovereign citizens. The way I said that, citizens. I can't even say the word. Okay, sovereign citizens. If people don't know who they are, they're these people over in the States, usually the States. Again, Britain has a growing number of them now as well. We've had some in Ireland, actually, a couple of famous cases. But they basically go around with cameras, the phones on sticks, not even nothing professional, but they go around saying that the press, and they believe that they can film anywhere that they want. And they go into a courthouse, and they go into the lobby, and they start harassing the employees, saying like, oh, can I get, not not verbally or physically harassing them yet, but going in and asking for stupid questions. But immediately they know that the employees do not want to be filmed. They ask not to be filmed. The sovereign citizen says, it's my right to film you. This is a public lobby. They say, well, we're going to call the police. They're like, good. Or wait till you see, the police can't do anything because we're not doing anything wrong. The police come. This is the usual, by the way. This is just the usual way it goes. The police come. The person working there says, okay, we trespassed them. The police puts them outside. Sometimes they get arrested. This is what they want. The reason they want this is because they know that their supporters will then send them money to get a lawyer and to try and sue the state, or the county, or whoever it is, depending on what courthouse they went to. They're kind of like Karens, really. But there's some then that basically, and it's very, very strange, they'll go up to a crime scene, and they'll try and walk into the kind of general vicinity of the crime scene. And the police will say, you can't go here. He says, of course I can, it's a public sidewalk. And then they say, no, you can't. And he said, okay, then if you want me out of here, put up the tape. So they put up the tape. They see that as a little win. Then they'll abuse them. The stuff they'll say, like they say things to the police officer, like, "Go, why don't you go home and beat your wife and stuff?" This kind of stuff. I thought that was like, what's it called? Disturbing the peace situation. I don't know what you would get over in Ireland for saying that to police officers, but in the States, and because the fact it's being recorded. But they're trying to push, the police officers to do something. They want them to hit them, to, tase them, to pepper spray them. And they've all got this, by the way. There's videos of someone getting tased. There's videos of someone getting pepper sprayed. There's a couple of really nasty people out there that are like that. And they're just looking for this big pay. And they've got this this huge, they've got bugbears about police officers that I don't understand, but they hate them, and they really want to try and win money, and they get their supporters to send the money to them. So if you want to look up sovereign citizens, there's a few channels. Don't try not to go into their channels, because then it's kind of supporting their videos, but go into the people that show the sovereign citizens and then just take the piss out of them, because that's more appropriate, because these people are clowns, and they really think that they're above everything, and that one day they're going to get the big payday. But they obviously annoy me because they're just very strange. Again, where did your life go awry that you had to start doing this? It's an odd hobby to pursue. So that's it for the Bugbears. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week's show, and I really don't want to put a jinx on this, but I want to say it at the same time, because it's been a rocky road to get here. We've had to cancel 2 different ones. I've had to cancel 2 different ones, not the people coming on. But yeah, it's been a rocky one, but we're hoping for the quiz part 2 to be recorded next week, and to be out obviously on Wednesday week from this day week when this comes out. We're going to have 4 former guests on, 4 women this time, because we had 4 men the last time. I really think I've picked well, like I did the last time for the lads. I think it's going to be a lot of crack. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it, because I know it's going to be fun, and I don't really have to do an awful lot during the episode. I just have to ask the same questions they ask the lads, and hope to hear some, funny and entertaining answers. And I've no doubt I will. I'm really looking forward to it. I asked the awfully Irish lads about their future plans. It kind of got me thinking what I'd like to do next year sometime, if possible. Look, it's going to be a very difficult thing to get going. Time, money, there'll be a lot of things involved, but maybe you can get it in partnership with somebody else who's knocking around. But I'd love to get like a live event going, like a charity event. A charity event, obviously, for mental health, one of the mental health places, or companies, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean, one of the fundraisers for mental health. And like get maybe like some music in, don't worry, people, I will not be getting the guitar out, so you can all relax, but get like some local musicians in, get a couple of interviews, and have a bit of crack, maybe have a little quiz on the night, maybe have the final of the one that we were trying to organize after the episode next week. But it'll be like, again, early stages, something to think about. Venue, probably the hardest thing to sort out. But after that, it'll probably be something that we can get going, because we have had so much support from all of you. And we know that, if I asked for anything off someone, they're more likely to do it, because they've just been sound and they appreciate what we're trying to do, and we appreciate them a lot. So we'll see how it goes. But listen, that was actually, that flew by, that episode. I really appreciate you tuning in for a solo one. I know people love the guests coming on and that, but it's nice to kind of get some stuff off my chest. There were more people. There were more tended to be just people that annoy me rather than bugbears, but that doesn't really matter. I want to thank John, as always, for his work during the week, for his edits and stuff like that. Thanks to my mum, my dad, my granddad, to Jer and Calvin. Calvin has a huge event with Gamma up today. So obviously you'll be hearing this in the future. Hopefully it went really well for him and for Philip Mulpeter. They've both been on the show. They have talked about Gamma, and they're trying to bring a grassroots kind of MMA world to Ireland, and to, for younger people to kind of get going with events and stuff. And we've got Simon competing up there as well. So let's hope he did well. I'll find out. We'll all find out by now that the time this come out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. That would be brilliant. Obviously, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Find us there. Follow us. We put up some nice stuff. I think we do anyway, and I'm very not biased. Where you can follow us on, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts, etc. If you have done, thank you for staying till the end. If you haven't, thank you for starting the podcast. We'll be back next week with a guest for sure, because we have a few of them. Like I said, we're going to hopefully have 4 next week. So have a lovely week, and thanks again. Take care of yourselves.